it's my philosophy that you don't need a lot of tools to get started with making handmade books. You can buy a ton of tools for any craft or any hobby. I mean, you know, I know we all like to shop like crazy people, but really to get started, you don't need a lot. And I feel like you've probably got all that you need anyway, or mostly. Most people have got a ruler, most people have got, you know, scissors and some kind of knife. So I'm just going to show you what I feel like are my real essentials that I would pack on a trip. So, and you know, why I like them and how I use them. So let's flip us down to the table. Here we go. If you can see that. Remember, there's a printable version of this with links. The links that I put in here, most of them you can buy everywhere. Right, make sure we're focused. I'm sure Mickey will tell me if I'm not. I think most of the links here are for colophon, but a lot of these you can get in many different places. You can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them at smaller art supply stores, Dick Blick, Tallis, Hollanders. This is, I just put them sort of mostly from one place, so it's easy for you to find them. So the first item that I have, always close to hand, is my Olfa knife. It's the 9mm. Now there's a bigger version which you also might like to get for let's just come a bit closer. You might also like to get for cutting bookboard. I cut bookboard with this, I will tell you. But when you buy this knife, the reason I like this knife is, where is the other one? Instead of an X-Acto, because I can't find the X-Acto now. So, yeah, who knows? Because literally I've like trashed the place now, opening up that box. The reason I don't like an X-Acto is the blades are expensive to replace. So with this one, the blades actually snap off. So you're supposed to use this right here. Oh, it's ever so dark, isn't it? Let's try and come. I don't know why that's so dark. Let me just turn the big light on. I don't know if that's really making any difference. That might make a difference. There we go. You're supposed to use this little end tool to snap off the blades. You see right here, there's these lines. Hopefully you can see that snap off. So that's a lot more cost effective than a X-Acto knife. I have trouble using this. Maybe I'm just not strong enough. You're supposed to slide this through here and snap off. Or slide it through there and snap it off. What I tend to use is some wire cutters or a pair of needle nose pliers, or even garden shears I use sometimes. And you just snap each one off. I usually do like 2 at a time. You literally just snap it off. The thing to remember is to put it in a container and not in your trash can. So just keep them in a plastic container. I normally have a lid on this. So I usually use like a sour cream or something with a lid, and then cut a little slit and then just have a little plastic tub. I'm just using this right now. And my tip for having one of these knives is to have lots of refills. Lots and lots of refills. So I'm not going to be able to open this right now because it's, I think it's got a label on it. But this has 13 little individual blades on it. And I think, I don't remember how much this refill was. I use my knife, huh? There we go. So that's a lot of refills, and this was not expensive. I got it from Colophon, and that honestly is going to last me a really long time. And it ensures that you always have a sharp blade. And why do you want a sharp blade? Well, so that you can cut your own bookboard. So let's cut some bookboard, folks. So in all honesty, I do have a big paper cutter, but I don't use it to cut bookboard because it ruins the blade. I cut by hand. I don't have access to a board shear anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. So I literally cut these by hand. So I just go in, and I'm not particularly strong, or that is a little wavy, isn't it? Let's take off that piece again and get like a straight. There we go. I literally cut all my bookboard by hand, like that. So you may want to get the more heavy duty one. So I'm just doing shallow cuts till I get a nice neat edge. And I mean, that's pretty nice, right? With a brand new blade. Remember, if you've got lots of refills, then you will always get this nice clean cut, and you also won't kind of slip or cut yourself. So that's my number one most favorite tool. And honestly, it's under $10. So, and I'm sure Mickey will put a link in for me because she's a doll. My second tool is Teflon bone folder. There are lots of different types of Teflon bone folders. So when you're looking online, just take a peek and see which one you fancy. I don't have my other ones here. I like this one because of this square end right here. So it's really nice for when I'm sort of, show you a minute, when I'm wrapping paper onto it. It's really nice for sort of pushing along the edges. Do you see it's got like a, it's almost comes in at like an angle. So I really like this square edge, and it's really nice for getting into corners and things. I also really like this rounded edge. But think about what kind of things you do. You may want a sharper tip for scoring. I'll show you my favorite scoring tool later, but when you're buying these, they're quite an investment. They're about $25. So just sort of just think about what kind of shape you would like. Some of them are like kind of almost like square, and you can hold them in your hand. Some are thin and very tapered and sharp. So if you're just investing in one, just kind of think about which one to purchase for the first time. The reason I like these is I like the weight. They feel nice and heavy in my hand. They're nice and smooth. And when this is paper, but say this was bookboard, when I'm rubbing on a piece of book cloth, I beg your pardon, book cloth, it doesn't make it all shiny. This also is easy to clean. So if you look at my plastic bone folders, they're kind of dirty. I get glue on them, then it's hard to get off. They get all nicked. You'll find these last, they've got a few scratches on, but you'll find they last a heck of a lot longer, and they're a really nice investment. So I think I had my first one as a birthday present from my parents because it was expensive and it was an investment. But so I believe this one is from Shepherd's in London. So that's my second essential tool. Let's see. Amy says she's able to use a little tool. Good, I'm glad. I don't know why I can't, Amy. It's just one of those things, you know. Hi, Donna. Yes, Donna, it's an Alpha blade, yeah. What else? Let's have a look. What else are my essential tools? Because I sew a lot of books, another essential tool are my awls. Where's my awl? So this is another awl that I have. It's even bent, you can see. I really like this thin awl because it's a similar weight, a similar thickness to the kind of thread that I use. So I really like this thin awl, and you can get them all over the place. So if you were just starting out, I would suggest you get one thin awl, and I would suggest you get one thick awl. So this thin awl you're going to use for signature. So let me find a book. Here's a book. No. So I would use the thin awl to create the holes in my signatures for sewing. And then I would use one of these heavy duty awls for the cover, because the cover is bookboard. And going through bookboard with one of these thin awls is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for hurting your wrist and also for snapping this off. So having one of these heavy duty ones, you can get ones with larger wooden handles, almost like a ball, which are easier on the wrist. And you just go downwards like that. And they're a lot easier to create sewing holes if you're doing a Coptic stitch book. See, that went through pretty easy, right? To the other side. We would get rid of this extra material. So my other two go-to tools are my thin awl and my stabbing awl. Like I say, I think you probably need both, just because this would break if you use it on bookboard. Another one of my favorites is this one, but it's not in my essentials, and I use this when I create thicker signatures. When I punch holes in thicker signatures, I didn't use it for this one, which is the challenge book, but when I use it for handmade paper signatures like this, I would use this thicker one. But you don't have to have this. You could use the chunkier stabbing awl for that too. You can see. All right, what else? Why don't you tell me in the comments what your favorite go-to tool is? Is it your bone folder? Is it your needles? What is it? I'm curious to know. What else is on my 13 essentials for the kind of books that I make? I really like having a punching cradle. Certainly don't have to have my punching cradle. I really like to use this to create the holes in my signatures. So as I just showed you right there, it's really useful to make the holes in your signatures. You would put a template in here like this, and then punch the holes where they're supposed to go, and the awl comes out the bottom like that. There's a gap. There's a gap right here, along here. So there are different models on the market, different kinds. You can kind of see that right there. That's where the hole is. There are different brands on the market. You can also make your own. And in the little PDF I gave you, there's a link to a tutorial to make your own, so you do not have to buy one. You can also use a magazine as well. You can open up a thick magazine and use that. So imagine this is a magazine, and these are the pages, and this is the center of the magazine. You can use a magazine. But this is one of my 13 essentials. Japanese screw punch, huh? Kathy asked a really good question. How do you get rid of this on the back? So I don't know what these are called. I call them like little burrs. That's a great question. Let's come in a bit closer. There are two ways. If you haven't already covered it with paper, say it's like this, you can come in with your knife, just slice off the top like that. There we go, get rid of the excess. And then to get rid of the rest of it, you would just go over it with a little piece of sandpaper. So that's one way. And then there's my sandpaper right here. My sandpaper is another essential tool. Well, it's not on the list, but, and then just give it a little, actually that's too coarse. Just use a light grit sandpaper. And give it a little sand, and that's how you get rid of those burrs. And then I had this question the other day, actually, how when you have thick paper like this, how do you get rid of these little bumps? When you've done your sewing, you just go in with your bone folder and flatten them down like that. You don't want to be cutting these off because that's a recipe for disaster. You just go in and flatten them with your bone folder like that. Okay, any other questions? Where can I find the PDF? Thank you, Mickey. She popped a link in. It's also in the description of this video as well. I feel like the space of my punching cradle is too big and my paper falls through. Any advice? That's a great question, Naomi. If it's one of mine, or even a homemade one, you can put a piece of book cloth. Probably put a piece of book cloth in here. I don't. Let's imagine this is book cloth. So I would put double-sided tape on either side of here and put a piece of book cloth in here, just, you know, spare book cloth, perhaps left over from a project or something. pop that in there, and then that will stop your paper falling through, but you'll still be able to punch through the book cloth through the gap. Great question. I love it. Where can I find leather for book cloth? I buy my leather at Springfield Leather. I use their medium weight chap leather. All right, let's see what else is on my 13 essentials. So this is a tool that's fairly new to me, about a year old, from Colorways. Many of you know Claudia from, I'll bring the light a bit closer. Many of you know Claudia from her box making. This is one of her tools and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to show you how I use it. The reason I love, there are plenty of the corner mitering tools on the market. And so, you know, please pick your favorites. But this really would be in my essentials now. The reason I like it is it's heavy, it's metal. See how thick that is? It's nice and heavy. It does a good job mitering, obviously, which it's its job. But the other thing, the kind of bonus is that it's 3/4 of an inch wide. So it's really good for, I'm going to show you how I use it in a minute. Let me grab one of my other. So this is one of my other, on the last on the list is a heavy duty mason jar, like a heavy bottomed mason jar, which I put my glue in. The reason I do this, so the reason I like using a heavy bottomed mason jar is that it doesn't spill. So if this was on in a plastic cup, I would knock it over because I'm clumsy. This is nice and heavy. I also like a thicker glue. So I'm just trying to find my glue brush. Here we go. I like a thicker glue, so having some air in here makes it thicker. If I want to thin it out, I just grab a spray bottle and put a little bit of water in there and stir it with a popsicle stick or a lolly stick. But I just really like decanting my PVA into this. So that's last on the list. And then periodically I'll let it run dry. I'll let it all, I'll use it all up. I'll let it go dry for a few days. And then I just go in with a knife and then scoop out all this extra stuff. And then I'll start again. And the way I use it is I usually put a piece of wax paper or saran wrap or cling film over the top so that the lid doesn't get stuck. Another item on my list is I don't use regular glue brushes, like bookbinding glue brushes. I tend to use these flat brushes. I really like this Dynasty brand. These are synthetic flat wash brushes. I first got turned on to these by Jane Davies. They're meant for acrylic paint, but I really like them for acrylic medium, for matte medium, soft gel medium, and I also like it when I make a small book. And I make a lot of small books, so I use this a lot, as you can see. And I try hard to keep it clean. If I'm making a larger book, I will use just one of these chip brushes. Apparently I use some ink pink on this. And I use them for several weeks or even a month, and then I throw them away, and they're like 50 cents. So they're cheap and cheerful. And I usually have a couple different sizes. So the larger your book, the larger the brush you'll use. But because I generally make smaller books, I really like these Dynasty brushes. So let's backtrack and I'll show you how I use this tool, which I love, love, love. I'm going to put glue on here. I'd normally put a waste sheet down. So I'll do that. It's like something that I was practicing a stamp on. So I'm just covering this. So if you're new here, please let us know in the comments because we would like to say hi and welcome you. There will be lots of new folks joining us because of the 5-day challenge. That's one of the reasons I'm doing my essential tools today for you and for everyone else as a little reminder. So I've glued all of this. Look at that. Is there a front and a back? Nope. I'm going to lay this on here. So push down another one of my essential tools, the Teflon bone folder. So do you see like this side piece? And rub it along here. I feel like it's easier with the Teflon folder than with a plastic or a bone. It probably isn't, but just trying to justify the $25 my parents spent on this for me. So this is how I would use this tool here, because it's 3/4 of an inch wide, and if I butt it right up against my book board, the paper that I trim off, once I've trimmed off the paper, I beg your pardon, will give me an even turn-in, which will be really, really nice. So here's another essential tool. Remember to do the triangle facing in, not facing out. Not that I would ever do that, you understand. There we go. So that is one of the advantages of this tool, is that you have 3/4 of an inch all the way around, which I really, really like. It's also, I prefer anything metal to plastic if I can, just because it's like it's going to wear longer. If this was plastic and I put my knife against here, I would nick the plastic, and I don't want to nick the plastic. I want this tool to last as long as possible. Not that it's super expensive. I think it's maybe $12 or $13, but you know, I just want my tools to last a long time. Also, I think if I use these blades and I nicked against plastic, it would dull my blade quicker. And then we use it to create a corner. So what you do is you slide this corner here up against the book board. Hi, Elaine. I hope you just got my email. And then you cut along here to create a triangle like that. So the one thing that you want to keep in mind with this tool, the one way that it is not perfect, is that this distance right here, I mean this sort of depth or measurement right here, wants to be about the same size as your book board. So when you lay it down like this and you put your finger on there, they should be fairly level. It's coming a bit, they should be fairly level. So if you are using a thinner book board, so let's just say this was a thinner book board, I would still use this tool. I would do this, and then I would take a little bit extra off here. I would use my eye, and I'd probably take off a little bit extra to make sure that there wasn't too much paper at the corner piece right there. But as these are a similar thickness, that works out just fine. So that's one of my other favorite tools. Let's look down the list, shall we? I'm actually not going in order, so I apologize, but I hope you'll forgive me. Another one of my favorite tools, and maybe it's a supply and not a tool, is these strips of paper, like 2-inch strips of paper. I keep these by my desk all the time, and I use them for making templates. So I think I just showed you one. I don't know where it is now, of course. It had marks on it for sewing, so I use them for, here it is. I use it for a sewing template. I have some with grid that I use also as sewing templates, but I mostly use them for gluing. So I generally have, I don't usually use these ones for gluing, but these ones I'm going to use. Instead of using large pieces of paper like this and wasting them, even if it's a free piece of magazine paper, I just use a tiny strip. In fact, I would even do one which was smaller for this. I use these tiny strips so that it saves paper. So I would then glue along here. Actually, we'd do top and bottom first, wouldn't we? And then I would just throw the strip away. So the reason I like this is it saves paper. I can pull this away and then fold it and throw it in the trash. Whereas if I have a big piece, and this may seem like trivial, but this is the kind of thing that occupies my mind. If I have a big piece like this, and I put glue on it, and then I forget to say fold it over. So now, for example, what if I then put this on top? I'm going to get glue on the front of my book. What if I forget to fold this over? Or what if I don't cover up that glue? So that is why I really like those thin strips. It's just a tiny, tiny detail, but, you know, bear with me, folks, because it's all about the details when you make books, right? Okay, I won't carry on. Let's use another one of the essential tools, though, the bone folder. And there's glue on here, and I can just wipe it off on a rag on my apron or on my fingers. Let's fold this over. That's another one of the essential tools. All right, what else is in my essential toolkit? Now I've made a mess on my desk. What other essentials? Oh, my ruler. So I really like having a quilting ruler. Excuse the ring light. I don't cut against it with a metal knife. I'll use a rotary cutter. I'm going to flip the camera around for a second so I can look at you. Okay. Hi. You should see the floor. It looks great. I really like my quilting ruler. And for obvious reasons, it has these marks at 1/4 inch. So if I want to cut out a big piece of paper, a piece of patterned paper, a piece of book cloth, this is really handy. The 24 inch or even longer, if you can get them, the 24 inch long is really helpful. This one's only 8.5 inches wide, and I find that enough, but if you want to get a bigger one, by all means. But if you're in the market for a quilting ruler, or you already have one, because I bet you already have one, they are really, really helpful for, I'll show you in a second, but for just making things square, lining things up, and just this grid and the fact that it's see-through is just a real godsend. I really couldn't live without this, and I use it a lot. And I don't see many bookbinders using quilting rulers, but I find this extremely helpful. So you would just use it the same way you would use it in quilting, to get your edges straight, to get yourself a 90-degree corner. I do use it with a rotary cutter for leather and book cloth and fabric, obviously. But if I'm going to use a metal knife with it, I will mark a pencil mark with it. Then I'll go in with a metal ruler and a blade. But I really could not live without this. I don't know if I'd get this size in my suitcase, but I would darn well try. I have several other sizes, but this is the one I use the most, the 24-inch one, because most pieces of paper are that big. And if you can get a bigger one, even better. And if you live in the States, Joann's, I know it's a big store, Joann's and Michael's, and probably Hobby Lobby, but I don't happen to shop there. They all have 40% off coupons. I think Hobby Lobby does, I don't know. But Michael's and Joann's have 40% off coupons, which is really useful for this. And also for a self-healing cutting mat, which probably should have gone on my list too, the self-healing cutting mat. But would I get that in my suitcase? Yeah, probably not. Okay, what else is on the list? Let's see. Needles. I'll go through needles in a second. I've done my washes, my wash brushes. Let's flip down again. Let's actually do needles. I literally get asked this like every single week, and I'll just show you my favorite needle. It's from Talus, and it's the #1 bookbinding needle. Let's see if we can come in close. A piece of white paper. I'll tell you the reason I like it. So, I mean, I wouldn't order these specially, but if you're putting through an order, okay, that's not it actually. If you're putting through an order, then is it? Yes, it is. Then I would add these on because they're pretty inexpensive. They're a couple of dollars. So this is the #1 bookbinding needle. So what's special about it is that it has a blunt end. So certainly if you have a needle with a sharp end, you can sand it to make it blunt, but I kind of like it ready blunted. It has a blunt end. So why that helps me is when I'm sewing a book and I'm, say, struggling to find the hole that I made, yesterday when I punched the holes, if this needle is very sharp, you might catch the paper fibers and make an extra hole. But with a blunt one, you're less likely to do that. And it's a lot easier to wiggle the needle around until you find the hole. If this was super sharp, by now I'd have made like a second hole. I'd have ripped it. I'd have got paper fibers everywhere. So that is why I really like the blunt end. It's not essential, but as everyone asks me, what is my favorite needle all the time? That's why. The other reason is, do you see the hole is quite small? So I also use a needle like this when I'm doing exposed leather bindings. That's got quite a large eye, you'll see. But the reason I like this number 1 is the eye is quite small. Can you see that? It's quite a small eye. So when I pull it through, it's not going to make that hole bigger. What we don't want is to punch a nice thin hole with our awl for a nice thread and then pull through a needle with a big fat eye. So we pull this needle through with a big fat eye, that's going to make that hole bigger, and then the stitch will wiggle around and then the binding won't be quite as secure. Tiny details, but you know, as I say, it's all in the details. I believe that the number 18 that they have has got a sharp point, and there's definitely a place for those with the sharp, just like the blunt. Also, with the blunt, there's less blood. I don't know about you, but there's always blood on my books. That is my favorite needle, and I'm sticking with it, folks. I'm sticking with it. I think I just put that in the wrong one. So this is just from the from Joann's, the fabric store. It's just a little holder just to separate out my needles. All right, what else? Let's see. Yeah, Paula likes a tag. Where is my bone folder from? My bone folder is from Shepherd's, but I think it's pretty much in London, but I think it's pretty much the same as the one from Colophon Book Arts, I do believe. If you have been with me for any length of time, you'll know that this is also on my 13 essentials. Like, I can't live without this ruler. The reason I like this, and if I was going on a trip somewhere and I could only bring one ruler, this is the one I would bring. The reason is it has inches, it has centimeters. It is metal, so it's nice and sturdy. It's good, I can cut against it, so it's not plastic, so there's no nicking. But also it gives me a really great edge like this. So let's say that I had a piece of book board. Let's find some. Let's say I had this piece of book board and it wasn't quite square. We'd go in with a pencil. I'm still trying to find things. We'd go in with this pencil. We'd mark a perfect square like that. Then we'd go in and cut with against that metal edge, and that would give me a perfect square on my book board, on my paper. It's just a handy dandy. I like the biggest one they have, which is 9 inches. There's 2 different angles. I don't think it matters which angle you buy, because I don't use the angled side. So I think there's a 45 and 90 degree, then a 30, 60, 90. It doesn't matter. So you're going to get like a perfect corner like that. This is the only tool you ever buy. I would buy that. And then is that everything? Oh, my paper knife is my other tool, which is actually a bit of a luxury, but I would take this overseas with me on a trip any day of the week. Mine is from London. They're also called cobbler's knives because apparently shoemakers use them, and they're used for getting a nice decal edge on paper. Let me show you how that works. So say you've got an enormous piece of paper. Imagine this is a huge piece of paper. And, you know, using a ruler and a knife or using a pair of scissors, you'd get a wavy edge and you want to tear it down. You would fold your paper over, rub it with a bone folder. Now, this knife is not particularly sharp, see? Not particularly sharp. And they often have slightly rounded ends. This has one rounded end and one sharp end. So although this is from London, Hollanders also has them. Like I say, sometimes they're called shoe knives or cobbler's knives. Let me come back a little bit for you so you can see. So I folded that in half. You slide this under here. And you do like a sawing motion away from you to get a nice decal edge. So I really like that knife. But to be honest, the main reason I have this, and the main reason it would go in my suitcase, is because I love the way it scores. Gives me a really nice score line. You can get a similar score line with your Teflon bone folder for sure. It's just, see, that's a little bit wider. Maybe you can't see. So that's why you have to keep in mind what kind of folder you order. And this end is even wider. So that is why. You could also use the tip of your scissors too. That's fairly wide, that's a little less wide, but then when I use a knife, I get this nice thin score line. So I think I have hit all of my 13 favorite tools. And can you let me know in the comments how many of those you already have? Because I bet you have a lot of these already. You have strips of paper, I know that for sure. You have a mason jar, I know that for sure. You probably have some kind of knife for sure. Let me flip the camera around. And then have you got any questions about anything? I can look at comments now and I can answer. Oh. I'm not going to show you the floor. I've got a bit of paper sticking to my feet. Do you have any questions about these tools, about any other supplies or tools? I am happy to stay on the live right now and answer any of those questions that you might have. Let me see. I'm just going to read. I'm just going to read them. Joanne says she needs a cobbler. I need a cobbler too. I have shoes that need repairing. I don't even know if they. Is it even? I guess there are still shoe repairers out there. Christy says she's got the triangle, the quilting ruler. Oh, I lost. Where did you go, Christy? And the punching cradle. Excellent. This is a great tip. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle says, I found an old curved linoleum knife. Makes a lovely faux decollage. Yeah, I think that's the same kind of concept, right? Like a, almost like a blunt knife, if you know what I mean. So yes, thank you, Michelle. That's great. Oh. Apparently, Joanne needs the cobbler's knife, not the cobbler. Well, I need the cobbler, not the cobbler's knife. Let me see. Shelby asked, the bookboard you ordered, is it short or long grain? Let me have a look. Where is... I'm just going to double check that what size I ordered. I ordered the 20.5 by 31, which I think is the smaller one. And it is short grained. So if you don't know what short grain means, the grain's running this way. So when I bend it, it's flexible this way, nice and flexible this way. So it runs parallel to this short edge. If I flipped it, oh, I can't bend it. I get a lot of resistance. But say I got least resistance this way and the grain was running this way, it would be long grain because it runs parallel to the long side. But great question, Shelby. It is short grained. And the size that I bought is the 20.5 by 31. So she may cut that down for you as well. If you ask her, oh my gosh, I've got like paper stuck around. If you ask her, she may cut it down to a smaller size for you. I think there's a small fee. If not, Hollanders also cuts down bookboard. But if you don't want to buy a big piece of bookboard, you can always order from Linico. So Linico does small packages of bookboard, which you can get from art supply stores and from Amazon. So if you don't want to buy a big sheet of bookboard, I would suggest ordering Linico. And if you don't want to order bookboard, you can always use the back of a watercolor pad or a sketchbook pad as long as it's fairly thick. If you get into bookmaking, I wouldn't suggest that all the time. But certainly if this is your first book, go ahead and use that backing board. Great question. Glue. Oh, yes. Would glue be an essential tool? Well, it's a supply. So yes, what glue do I use? Good question. I use, just make sure that's not Mickey telling me something. Okay. Nope. I use PVA glue from Linico. See if you can see it. Obviously, I buy a gallon at a time, but any kind of PVA made for bookbinding is what you would, if you're ordering, that's what you would order. If you're not placing any kind of order, any kind of white glue that you have around is fine. I wouldn't do Mod Podge. And Elmer's wouldn't be my first choice, but if that's what you have on hand, then use that. And then when you're ready to place an order for art supplies or bookbinding supplies, I would order some bookbinding PVA because it's pH neutral and it's meant for bookbinding. But I wouldn't go spend a lot of money if you have something at home that you could already use. Good questions. Let me see. Carol's got 7 of them. Hopefully I won't miss anything. Oh, thank you, Joan. Joan's told me where a cobbler is. The mitering tool is going on my list, says Kathy. Honestly, it's great, and it's not even that expensive. Melissa asked a great question. My PVA is thickened. Can I use a touch of water to loosen it up? Yeah, I have a spray bottle. I just always have a spray bottle close to hand. I give it a couple of spritz. It's just add a little bit, give it a stir, see what you think, add a bit more until you get the right consistency. And just use like a, popsicle stick or something to give it a good stir. Some people add methyl cellulose to theirs, but I just use water. Carol's become a obsessive collector. Oh yeah. I hope I'm trying not to miss any of your questions. I answered Shelby's. Where to find the heavy-bottomed mason jar? My Ace hardware store, which is next door. The hardware store has them. That's where I found mine, and I think Walmart also has them. But also look in the grocery store. Sometimes, particularly around now and then late summer when people are preserving and canning. Not that I do that because I just don't. I don't make jam or anything. But were I to, I'd be looking in the grocery store for these. And this is, it's one of the Ball and Mason one. So it's a fairly well-known brand. But yeah, I would check first at your local hardware store. Good question. Amy has everything. Oh yes, Amy uses a butter knife. I've used that too, and they're great. You know, the old-fashioned butter knives with like the bone handle? They are great replacement for one of these cobbler's knives. So yeah, raid your kitchen and your closet because a lot of these things you already have. Let's see. Deborah's got pretty much everything. All right, let's see. Donna uses serrated table knife. Excellent. Great question from Gay. Gay says, you're advertising a 5-day challenge? Yes, there's a lot of advertising. I apologize. I'm a member. Do I register? No, you don't have to register at all. You are automatically signed up for it. So if you're a book club member, you're already signed up for the 5-day challenge. You don't have to do anything. You should have received an email Sunday night or Monday morning to that effect. You're already signed up. You can go ahead and join the Facebook group. I'll probably talk about it again on our community meeting on Sunday, and there'll probably be something in the weekly newsletter, but you are all signed up and ready to go. So if you log into handmadebookclub.com, if you log into your account, you'll see it right there, and you'll be able to find the supply list and how to find the Facebook group. But if you have any problems, Gay, just reach out to Mickey, help@vintagepagedesigns.com, and she will set you straight. Good question. All right. I think the triangle link might be incorrect. Oh, okay. Thank you, Terry. We will check that. Sure. All right. I think if that's everything, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can ask them in the Facebook group, in the Challenge Facebook group, in the Book Club Facebook group. You can shoot us an email. You can send us an Instagram DM. Facebook messages are harder for me to see just because there's several different places to find them. But email is probably the best place if you have a question about supplies. So help@vintagepagedesigns.com, or send me a DM on Instagram and I'd be happy to answer that for you. But not just for the challenge, but for anything. If you have any questions about supplies, I have this one thing, will it work? I have this tool, what do you think? Please reach out and let us know, because I really want you to, while I'm showing you my favorite tools and I'm giving you links, please look through your closet and find what you have, because I don't think we need to spend a ton of money to be able to make books, even though it is kind of fun to spend a little bit of money. Sometimes I don't think it's necessary to spend a ton of money to make fabulous handmade books. So thank you for being here today, folks. I'm glad. Oh, thank you, Anne. I hope you did pick up some tips. I know a lot of you have probably seen a lot of this before, but we have a lot of new folks too. So it's nice to share the knowledge, to bring new bookmakers into our fold. We'll convert you into avid bookmakers like the rest of us. So thank you for being here on this Thursday morning, and please feel free to reach out with any questions, and hopefully we'll see you soon in the 5-day challenge. All right, take care, folks. Have a wonderful day.